From where did this woman emerge? Jorge Alvarez murmured, his fingers gently resting on his lips in disbelief. The sophisticated wedding reception at Casa Montaña had reached a total halt. Every gaze was riveted on the waitress as she grasped the microphone. Her voice resonated throughout the ballroom, a blend of strength and fragility that captivated all who listened. The monochrome attire did little to conceal her innate elegance as she shut her eyes, surrendering to the melody. Jorge found himself captivated, unable to divert his gaze. There was an eerie sense of recognition about her that captivated him. Diego, the groom, leaned in closer, his best friend Jorge by his side. That's not the performer we contracted. That's one of the servers. She's absolutely mesmerizing, Jorge whispered, captivated by her presence. Are you familiar with her name? Valentina something. What is the reason behind this? Are you in search of your first wife? Diego chuckled, giving him a playful jab with his elbow. Jorge scowled. Not everything is meant to be taken lightly, Diego. Across the room, Valentina Mendez compelled herself to draw in a breath. How had she allowed Lucia to persuade her into this? When the contracted vocalist canceled at the last moment, her friend had nearly pleaded with her to take over. Only one song Lucia had implored. This couple invested a significant amount for their wedding celebration. If anything goes awry, I risk losing my job. As Valentina concluded the last note, the room burst into applause. She swiftly returned the microphone to the DJ, eager to fade away into the shadows once more. Everyone, let's give another round of applause for Valentina, the DJ called out, as she attempted to make her exit. The spotlight danced around her, and the audience's cheers swelled in intensity. Valentina executed an awkward curtsy before retreating to the kitchen, her heart racing. Lucia hurried in after her. Val, that was truly remarkable. There are inquiries being made about your well-being. Please, no more, Valentina said, clutching a tray of champagne flutes. This job is essential for me, Lucia. I can't afford to jeopardize my position by overshadowing others. No one is letting you go. The mother of the bride even gave me an extra tip solely for your performance. Valentina let out a deep sigh. That's pleasant, yet it doesn't alter the situation. I find myself struggling with rent, and the cost of Abuela's medicine continues to rise. When will you acknowledge that your skills are being squandered on catering to the wealthy? Lucia inquired, as she made adjustments to Valentina's name tag. When skill begins to cover the expenses. Valentina stepped through the swinging door, re-entering the reception area. As she moved gracefully with her tray, she sensed the weight of gazes upon her. One gaze, in particular, sent a shiver down her spine. The gentleman in the blue suit, clearly the best man given his position at the head table, had not taken his eyes off her since her performance. As she tidied up the plates by the bar, a conversation drifted into her ears, causing her to come to an abrupt halt. The best man leaned in toward the groom and said, "That waitress with the voice, I want to talk to her. Jorge, are you for Real? It feels like an eternity since you left. Returned to Medellin for a fortnight and already on the lookout for some excitement." Jorge maintained his stance, but Diego couldn't help but chuckle. It's a familiar tale with affluent men and attractive servers. Simply approach with care. Not everyone is familiar with your realm. Valentina's cheeks flushed with warmth as she quietly slipped away, the plates teetering delicately in her hands. So that was his desire. Just another affluent individual seeking a fleeting diversion. Throughout her years of waitressing, she had encountered numerous individuals like that. That evening, while Valentina tallied her tips in the cozy apartment she shared with her grandmother, the recollection of that man's piercing gaze lingered in her mind. "How did your shift go tonight, my love?" Dona Carmen inquired, her worn slippers shuffling softly against the kitchen floor as she entered. "Just like usual, Abuela." Valentina stashed the cash, meticulously sorting the bills meant for everyday expenses from the funds designated for her grandmother's medication. Except Lucia insisted that I sing when the entertainment fell through. "And did you create an unforgettable moment?" The eyes of her grandmother sparkled with a lively glimmer. In spite of her own reservations, Valentina found herself smiling. It appeared to resonate with them. Naturally, they did. When will you finally accept what I've consistently shared with you? Your voice is a treasure, one that may not bring in much wealth. Valentina assisted her grandmother to her cherished chair. How are you doing today? It's good to have you back home, Carmen said as she gently patted her hand. Are there any intriguing individuals at this elegant wedding? Valentina's thoughts were suddenly filled with the vivid image of Jorge's face. The transformation in his expression as she sang was striking, as though he glimpsed something deeper than her uniform. Just the typical affluent crowd, she remarked with a casual shrug. Unremarkable. Yet, as she surrendered to slumber that night, his question reverberated in her thoughts. From where did this woman emerge? If he only had the slightest inkling. She emerged from a backdrop of unpaid bills and postponed aspirations, from a neighborhood he likely wouldn't venture into, shaped by a lifetime of near misses. She was resolute in her determination not to be anyone's charity case or fleeting interest, regardless of the intensity of his gaze. Jorge Alvarez sat in his polished downtown office, gazing blankly at the Medellin skyline. 2 weeks had gone by since Diego's wedding, and the echo of that waitress's voice lingered in his mind. Earth to Jorge, Mateo called out, snapping his fingers. Since your return from Spain, your focus seems to have wandered. The board meeting is set to commence in 20 minutes. Jorge blinked, honing in on his cousin and business partner. Apologies, I'm merely contemplating the plans for expansion. It seems to me that this isn't quite the mindset of a savvy entrepreneur, Mateo remarked with a smirk, casually leaning against the desk. It resembles the expression you wore at Diego's wedding when that waitress began to sing. Jorge's demeanor grew stern. Refrain from beginning, simply stating, I've known you since our childhood days. That wasn't the expression you should have worn for business. Mateo glanced at his watch. The outlook for the new tech center appears promising. We are poised to commence construction next month. Once Mateo departed, Jorge retrieved his phone and made a call. Diego, it's me, the waitress from your wedding, Valentina. I must locate her. Diego chuckled heartily. I had a feeling about that. What happened to the idea that not everything is a joke? It's not what you imagine, Jorge insisted. I must determine if she is indeed the person I believe her to be. And who might that be? Jorge paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. The young woman who performed at my mother's funeral, the one I mentioned to you. A hush enveloped the other end. Are you kidding me? That was a decade and a half ago. What were you? 17? 16, Jorge amended. That voice has always lingered in my memory. That day, it was the sole instance of tranquility I experienced. Regardless of whether it's her, what actions will you take? Arrive and casually mention, hey, do you recall when my mother passed away? Jorge let out a deep sigh. I'm uncertain, yet I must discover the truth. The event coordinator could have the means to contact her. Lucia something. I will send you her number. 3 days later, Jorge found himself in the quiet solitude of Casa Montaña's empty restaurant, his nerves on edge as he awaited what was to come. Lucia Ramirez proved to be unexpectedly accommodating after he clarified his desires. Are you considering giving Valentina a consistent singing role? She inquired with a hint of doubt. He had stressed it without revealing his identity. She would never agree if she realized it was from me. He observed Lucia making her way over, with Valentina following closely behind. He crouched behind a pillar, his heart racing with the intensity of youthful excitement. Valentina expressed her confusion. What could motivate someone to seek my services without revealing their identity? Lucia shared that someone who attended the wedding was quite taken by your performance. 3 evenings a week, fair compensation. It would be unwise to decline. Feels strange. It's strange to see you serving tables when your singing is so incredible. Jorge observed Valentina's expression as she weighed the proposal. The sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating her features, the same large, expressive eyes he recalled from the funeral, though they had been filled with compassion then, rather than suspicion. After a moment of contemplation, Valentina finally spoke up. I need to think about it. Lucia gently reminded her that Abuela's medicine isn't getting any cheaper. Valentina's shoulders drooped a bit. All right, when do I begin? From his concealed position, Jorge let out a breath of relief. He remained distant for 2 weeks, allowing Valentina to acclimate to her new position. The insights from the restaurant manager validated his existing understanding. The audience was captivated by her charm. At last, he resolved to present himself in a more fitting manner. He made his entrance on a Tuesday evening, settling into a table tucked away in the corner. As Valentina took her place on the modest stage, the restaurant buzzed with the chatter of a crowd that was only half complete. She donned a sleek black dress, her hair cascading in soft waves down her back, a stark contrast to the waitress uniform. Her initial composition carried a gentle, sorrowful essence. Jorge shut his eyes, whisked away to that rainy day when a young girl's voice had, in some way, softened the sting of his mother's absence. Once she finished her performance, he walked over while she collected her sheet music. "Excuse me," he remarked. Valentina glanced upward, a spark of recognition igniting in her gaze. "You're truly exceptional." From the ceremony, Jorge Alvarez. He reached out his hand. "Your performance was exquisite." Her handshake was quick, her smile polished. "Thanks a lot. Are you savoring your meal?" "To be honest, I came here just to listen to your singing." Her demeanor hardened. "How delightful. I believe we've crossed paths previously," he insisted. "Once upon a time." "I doubt that," she remarked, tucking her music neatly into a folder. "I would certainly recall encountering someone like you. It was during a funeral, specifically my mother's funeral. You performed Ave Maria. You must have been barely 13. Valentina paused, examining his expression intently. "That was you, the young one who couldn't cease his tears." Jorge nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "You sat beside me afterward, sharing that your voice was a treasure passed down from your father. And in that moment, it became a treasure for me as well." "I recall," she murmured gently, the chill fading from her expression. "Your mother showed great kindness to my family. My grandmother served as her housekeeper." "Dona Carmen," Jorge murmured. "I failed to see the link. What would compel you to do that?" Even at that time, we hailed from entirely different realms. Her tone became even more cutting, sharper than before. "That seems unjust. You're not familiar with who I am." "I'm familiar with your kind," she retorted. "Allow me to speculate. You must be the mysterious supporter behind my performance opportunity? What do you seek in exchange?" Jorge flinched as though he had been struck. Silence prevails. "I listened to your singing and felt compelled to offer my assistance." "Is that really so difficult to accept?" "Based on what I've encountered, absolutely." Valentina collected her belongings. "I appreciate the opportunity, but I believe I must pass on it." "Please don't," Jorge said quickly. "No matter your perception of me, this is an opportunity for my voice to resonate. Your expression warrants that." Valentina paused, uncertainty clear in her features. "I will consider it." As she turned to leave, Jorge shouted after her. "Your voice continues to resonate, just as it did in the past." Valentina hesitated, yet she remained facing away. Her posture shifted subtly, a hint of softness emerging as she moved toward the exit, leaving Jorge to grapple with the memories he'd held onto for 15 years and a bond he wasn't prepared to let slip away once more. "So you're holding onto the position?" Lucia inquired, gently sipping her coffee while they occupied a quaint cafe close to Valentina's apartment. Valentina gave a hesitant nod. "I'm in need of some funds, Lucia. Abuela's new medication is twice the price of the old one. And it has nothing to do with that dashing millionaire who came to hear you sing." Lucia arched an eyebrow. Valentina insisted that Jorge Alvarez was not the reason for her actions. Yet her voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. The discussion regarding his mother's funeral had left her feeling perplexed. "It's intricate." "Go ahead," Valentina sighed. "His mother showed great kindness to my family. For many years, Abuela served as her housekeeper. As a child, I performed a song at her funeral. He recalled my presence." Lucia's eyes grew large with surprise. "That's right out of a dramatic storyline." Valentina objected. It's not like that. We come from distinct realms. He resides in that sleek glass tower in the heart of downtown, while I struggle to keep up with the rent for our modest apartment in El Popular. Beautiful collisions can occur between different worlds, my friend. Valentina let out an exasperated sigh. This isn't a typical love story. However, in the weeks that followed, Jorge became a familiar face at her performances. He consistently occupied the same corner table, remained until her last performance, and consistently left a generous gratuity for the staff. On a particular night, he lingered by the stage door, awaiting her arrival. You performed a fresh piece this evening, he remarked. I'm experimenting, Valentina said, pulling her thin jacket closer to shield herself from the evening chill. I enjoyed it, but Jorge seemed uncertain. Would you join me for dinner? Shall we discuss music? Only music, she inquired with a hint of doubt. Perhaps during these past 3 weeks, you've been steering clear of genuine conversations with me? Valentina found herself unable to suppress a smile. You're quite straightforward, aren't you? I've come to understand the importance of valuing my time. She studied him for a moment. A single dinner, as associates. Jorge smiled broadly. I will accept it. He led her to a quaint eatery in Envigado, a stark contrast to the elegant places she had anticipated. The owner embraced Jorge with a heartfelt hug. Are you familiar with this location? Valentina inquired, taken aback. Jorge shared that he spent his childhood just 6 blocks away from this very spot. Antonio Zaripa has been my guiding light throughout engineering school. Yet, I believed I came into this world with a silver spoon in my mouth. Jorge chuckled heartily. My father drove a taxi. My mother worked as a house cleaner. All that I possess, I created following their passing. As traditional Colombian food graced the table, Valentina's defenses gradually softened. Jorge shared the story of how he established his tech company, reflecting on the time spent in Spain and Silicon Valley before making the journey back to Medellin. And now you return because this might come off as a bit cliché. However, he acknowledged the need to create an impact. Technology has the power to reshape communities similar to the one we were raised in. Our neighborhood requires more than just stylish applications, Valentina asserted. Do you enjoy music? Jorge inquired. Share with me your aspirations, the ones that lingered before the world intervened. Valentina cast her gaze upon her plate. I aspired to attend the conservatory and share my passion for music with children who lacked the means for lessons. What held you back? Truth, she stated plainly. When I was 16, I lost my parents in an accident. My grandmother looked after me. Now it's my moment to look after her. As weeks transformed into months, their bond grew stronger. Jorge was present at every performance, and afterward, they would engage in lengthy conversations about music, aspirations, and gradually, their emotions for one another. One evening, Jorge astonished her by leading her to the headquarters of his company. What brings us to this moment? Valentina inquired as they stepped into the contemporary structure. I have something to share with you, Jorge said, guiding her into a conference room where a large table was adorned with blueprints. What is this all about? A music school, he elaborated, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Within the confines of our former community. Inexpensive classes, financial aid opportunities, and studio access. Valentina's heart pounded in her chest. Jorge, this is truly remarkable. I want you to take charge, he said, grasping her hands. In the role of director, Valentina withdrew. I cannot accept that. What's stopping us? It's all that you've ever desired. It would be you offering me everything, she said, her voice trembling. How can I determine if I have achieved success based on my own abilities? Jorge appeared wounded. Is that really how you perceive me? Am I attempting to win your favor? Not at all, however. What comes next? Valentina asserted that she must rely on herself. I want to be sure that I can succeed on my own, without relying on others. Even someone who cares for you, Jorge said softly. The words lingered in the air between them. Valentina's breath hitched. Could you repeat that? My heart belongs to you, Valentina. The moment you sang at that wedding, I felt something shift within me. Perhaps even earlier, when a 13-year-old displayed greater compassion towards a grieving boy than anyone else did. Jorge, no need for words, he cut in. However, I urge you not to dismiss the music school due to your pride. The children in that community truly merit it. Valentina examined the blueprints once more. I require some time for contemplation. Take all the time you need, Jorge said softly. The opportunity will remain, and so will I. That evening, as Valentina shared the news of Jorge's proposal with her grandmother, Dona Carmen smiled with a knowing expression. Excuse me? Valentina inquired. Her grandmother remarked that the boy always possessed a kind heart, even when sorrow threatened to shatter it. His mother noticed it as well. But, Abuela, what if others believe I'm with him just for his wealth? Since when have you been concerned about others' opinions? Carmen took on a challenge. The true inquiry lies in whether you fear his riches, or if you dread the consequences of allowing yourself to reciprocate his affection. Valentina found herself at a loss for words. As she drifted into slumber that night, it dawned on her that, at some point, her fortress of doubt had shattered. In spite of their contrasting realities, Jorge revealed his authentic self to her. Not the wealthy figure in the high-rise, but the young man from her community, who always remembered his roots. And she was filled with dread at the depth of her feelings. The sunlight poured into Jorge's penthouse apartment, casting a warm glow as Valentina gazed out at the Medellin skyline. Half a year had gone by since their inaugural dinner, and in spite of her early doubts, she had succumbed to a profound love for him. Would you like some coffee? Jorge materialized next to her, presenting a steaming mug. Thank you. She accepted it with appreciation. This view is simply unbelievable. My whole apartment would easily fit within your living room space. Imagine waking up to this view every single day, Jorge remarked nonchalantly. This isn't the first occurrence. Valentina took a careful sip of her coffee, deliberately steering clear of his eyes. Jorge, I understand. It's premature. He pressed his lips gently against her forehead. However, the proposal remains on the table. The music school was on the verge of completion. Despite her reservations, Valentina had consented to take on the role of director. The delight radiating from the neighborhood children as they explored the half-finished building dispelled her uncertainties. In 2 weeks, the grand opening will take place, Jorge remarked, shifting the conversation. The mayor has confirmed his attendance. Is all this attention truly necessary? Valentina inquired. It seems over the top. Jorge clarified that it's more than mere publicity. It's about illustrating the potential that emerges when communities and enterprises collaborate. Additionally, increased attention leads to greater opportunities for securing funding. Valentina nodded, yet a sense of unease remained. Ever since they made their relationship known, she had sensed the watchful eyes of Jorge's social circle upon her. Mateo, especially, observed her with a thinly veiled skepticism. Is your cousin going to be present? She inquired. Jorge's expression grew more tense. Most likely Mateo. What is the reason? No particular reason, Valentina fibbed, just curious. Later that day, as they strolled through the park adjacent to Jorge's building, he unexpectedly grasped her hand and guided her to a bench. There's something I must share with you, he said, his demeanor grave, regarding the reason I departed after my parents passed away. Valentina tightened her grip on his hand. No need for an explanation. Indeed, he maintained. It seems you believe I left our community behind, and in certain respects that is true. Following the funeral, I found it unbearable to remain in that house. Every corner brought back memories of them. I can see where you're coming from, Jorge. What remains unclear is how I managed to isolate myself from everyone. My aunt and uncle welcomed me into their home, yet I was consumed by anger. At the world, at myself, he cast his gaze downward. I immersed myself in my studies, striving to create something that would bring pride to my parents. Yet, there are moments when I question whether they would feel even prouder if I had maintained a connection to our roots. Valentina raised his chin softly. They would feel immense pride in the person you've become and in the work you're doing now, as Jorge's gaze sought hers. How about you? So much remains a mystery to me. Similar to your union. Valentina tensed up. How did you? Mateo brought it up, Jorge replied swiftly. He mentioned that you were wed to a prosperous professor who has since passed away. Naturally, he did, Valentina remarked with a hint of bitterness. Why didn't you share that with me? She rose to her feet, moving back and forth in front of the bench. It's a source of deep anguish, Jorge. Professor Herrera served as my guide during my time at the community music program. Upon receiving his cancer diagnosis, he found himself without any family support. At the age of 22, I found myself in a position where he required someone to support him during his treatments. So you decided to tie the knot with him. Valentina made it clear that it wasn't romantic. He intended to pass on his music collection and instruments to me. We were both aware that he had only a few months left to live. Her voice faltered. Following his passing, his cousins challenged the validity of the will. Accused me of being a gold digger who took advantage of a dying man. Jorge rose to his feet and enveloped her in a warm embrace. I apologize. The court ruled in their favor. I chose to let it be. I wasn't willing to endure further accusations just to hold onto his belongings. She gazed up at him. That's why I tread carefully with regard to us. Concerning the institution, I am aware of the murmurs that circulate among them. I won't be swayed by their whispers, Jorge declared with conviction. Valentina issued a caution. In your realm, how one perceives shapes the essence of truth. After a fortnight, the much-anticipated grand opening of the music school finally took place. The structure, previously a forsaken warehouse, now shone with vibrant paint and newly installed windows. Within the walls, the classrooms resonated with an array of instruments. A modest recording studio claimed a corner of the space. Reporters and photographers mingled while local children experimented with the instruments. Valentina, poised in a classic blue dress, led the mayor through the facilities as Jorge engaged with prospective donors. What an impressive feat, Mateo remarked, joining Jorge, though I can't help but question the financial specifics. All details have been taken into consideration, Jorge responded. The budget reports await your attention on your desk. What I was referring to was your personal stake in the project, Director, Mateo said softly. Were you aware that your girlfriend's career background encompasses much more than just singing? Jorge's jaw clenched. This is not the moment, Mateo. Indeed, it's precisely the moment, his cousin insisted, before you entrust her with millions in funding. Just as Jorge was about to reply, Mateo made his way to the modest stage where the mayor was getting ready to deliver a speech. A disquieting sensation took root in Jorge's stomach. The mayor praised the school enthusiastically before inviting Valentina to the microphone. She expressed her gratitude to the partners and donors, her voice growing more powerful as she articulated the school's mission. Jorge observed with a sense of pride from the sidelines, briefly setting aside his worries about Mateo's actions. Valentina wrapped up by inviting Jorge Alvarez, the founder of this project, to share some thoughts. As Jorge approached the stage, Mateo stepped in his path, leaning in to murmur something quietly to him. Jorge's expression grew somber. He shook his head sharply, yet Mateo continued, displaying something on his phone. The crowd whispered as the uncomfortable silence lingered. Valentina's smile wavered as she observed the interaction. At last, Jorge maneuvered past his cousin and stepped onto the stage, yet the spark of his earlier excitement had faded. Once the speeches concluded and the attendees began to mingle, Mateo stepped up to the microphone once more, tapping it lightly to capture everyone's attention. Esteemed guests, if I may have your attention for a brief moment, he commenced, his voice resonating throughout the space. In my role as CFO of Alvarez Technologies, I hold a strong conviction about the importance of transparency. Jorge walked confidently toward the stage. Mateo, please halt. The background of our new school director is quite intriguing. Mateo pressed on, disregarding him entirely. Before taking on the role of a waitress, Valentina Mendez had a short-lived marriage to affluent music professor Rafael Herrera, who passed away unexpectedly, leaving her with nothing due to a prenuptial agreement. Whispers of astonishment spread among the onlookers. Flashes of light illuminated the scene while reporters hurriedly jotted down their observations. Valentina remained motionless, her complexion fading to a pallid hue. One must ponder the recurring theme of affection for affluent gentlemen, Mateo observed, fixing his gaze on Valentina. Jorge strode onto the stage and seized the microphone with determination. That will suffice. Yet, the harm had already been inflicted. Journalists crowded around Valentina, bombarding her with inquiries. Jorge maneuvered through the throng, but by the moment he emerged, she had vanished. That night, Jorge banged on Valentina's apartment door, shouting her name. Dona Carmen finally responded, her demeanor serious. The elderly woman remarked, "She's not here. Where could she be? It's important for me to clarify. She has departed. Jorge has left the city." Carmen's eyes held a melancholy depth, yet there was an unwavering determination within them. "She instructed me to inform you not to seek her out." Jorge pleaded with urgency, unable to accept Mateo's words as truth. "Not even for a moment. Your momentary hesitation on that stage spoke volumes," Carmen replied, "even if it was just for an instant." Jorge slumped against the doorframe, an unexpected weariness washing over him. "What should I do next?" Carmen observed him intently for an extended period. "Show me that you are the person I believe you to be, the one deserving of my granddaughter." 6 months stretched on for Jorge, each day dragging endlessly. The music school launched as scheduled, with Lucia hesitantly taking on the role of interim director. Yet, the essence of the endeavor, Valentina, had vanished. Jorge sat in his office, gazing at a spreadsheet, his mind drifting far from the numbers before him. The sudden knock at the door shattered his focus. "Enter," he beckoned. Lucia stepped inside, her demeanor suggesting unease. "Did you wish to speak with me? Is there any update?" Jorge inquired, repeating the question he had posed for months. "Nothing new," Lucia said, placing a folder on his desk. "The applications for the permanent director position are here." Jorge turned a blind eye to the folder. "Have you attempted to reach out to her grandmother once more?" "Jorge," Lucia said softly, "Dona Carmen won't share anything with me that she hasn't already shared with you. Valentina seeks to remain elusive." "I can't simply throw in the towel," Jorge insisted. "Half a year has passed. Perhaps it's time to what exactly? Advance forward?" Jorge rose, moving restlessly toward the window. "I am unable to do that." Following Mateo's public allegations, events unfolded rapidly. Jorge dismissed his cousin, only to uncover the true motive behind the assault. Mateo had been misappropriating funds and worried that Valentina might persuade Jorge to scrutinize the accounts more thoroughly. The legal repercussions continued to unfold, yet the wounds in Jorge's heart remained beyond the reach of any courtroom remedy. "I should have protected her," Jorge murmured, his words directed more inwardly than toward Lucia. Lucia responded, "She's more resilient than you realize. She always has been." That evening, Jorge made his way to the modest apartment that Valentina had once shared with her grandmother. He visited every week, bringing groceries and inquiring about Dona Carmen's well-being. The elderly woman had been hesitant at first, but gradually her demeanor changed, revealing a newfound warmth toward him. Carmen remarked as she opened the door, "You're early today. I have your medicine here," and Jorge is holding up the pharmacy bag, along with some fresh fruit from the market. Carmen beamed, her thoughtfulness shining through. "Step inside. The coffee is brewed and waiting for you." As they lingered at the small kitchen table, Jorge observed that Carmen appeared weary. "How are you doing today?" "Just aged," Carmen sighed. "The physician informs me that my heart is not as it once was." Alarm flickered in Jorge's expression. What were his exact words? "Are you considering consulting with a specialist? There's nothing they can accomplish that hasn't already been achieved." She gently patted his hand. "Try not to fret so much. I have experienced a fulfilling life." Jorge urged, "Please, don't speak that way. I will schedule an appointment for you with the top cardiologist in Medellin for tomorrow." Carmen's eyes brimmed with tears. "You bring to mind your mother." She consistently looked after everyone, and Jorge found it difficult to swallow. Her absence is felt even more keenly at this moment. She would admire you, not for your wealth or your business, but for the kindness you carry within. Carmen paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. Jorge, if something were to happen to me, nothing will happen, he cut in. Pay attention to what I'm saying, she urged. If anything occurs, Valentina will require your support, even if she believes she can manage on her own. Jorge inclined his body, eager and attentive. Are you aware of her whereabouts? Carmen appeared conflicted. At last, she grasped her purse and extracted a tattered postcard. She's in Santa Marta, employed at a restaurant named El Pescador close to the beach, performing for tourists. Jorge gazed at the postcard, disbelief washing over him. Why are you bringing this up at this moment? Life is fleeting, and love is far too valuable to squander on arrogance or apprehension. Carmen's voice carried a resolute strength. Approach her. Just make sure you keep it to yourself that I was the one who sent you. 2 days later, Jorge strolled along the Santa Marta shoreline. The coastal town exuded beauty, showcasing its crystal blue waters alongside charming colonial architecture. In another situation, he might have appreciated the landscape. El Pescador was a quaint open-air eatery overlooking the beach. Jorge selected a secluded table, his heart racing as he surveyed the room for Valentina. And then, like a vision, she appeared. She appeared transformed. Her hair shimmered with sun-kissed highlights. Her skin radiated a warm glow from a gentle tan. But what captivated him the most was her enchanting smile. She appeared joyful, at ease in a manner he had seldom witnessed in Medellin. Valentina glided from table to table, engaging effortlessly with the patrons. A modest stage was arranged in the corner, complete with a microphone and a guitar. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she took her place and started to sing. Her voice had transformed as well. A fresh layer emerged, a profound richness shaped by both suffering and recovery. The tourists hushed, captivated by her voice as she performed a melody Jorge had never encountered. A piece she must have crafted herself, reflecting on themes of departure and the journey back to belonging. As she concluded, the applause erupted without hesitation. Jorge became captivated, his attention fixed on her, and then, sensing his stare, she turned her gaze toward him. Her complexion lost all its hue. For a fleeting instant he believed she might escape. She offered a quick nod in his direction before pivoting to deliver her next performance. Jorge sat through her entire performance, cradling a solitary beer. As she completed her task, she made her way to his table, her demeanor cautious. "What brings you here?" she inquired directly, without any introduction. "I needed to see you," Jorge said plainly. "What led you to discover me? Is it significant?" Valentina surveyed her surroundings. "I am currently engaged in work, Jorge. This isn't the right time for me to tackle this." "When will that be?" he inquired. "Tonight, tomorrow, 6 months from now, will you vanish once more?" Her gaze ignited with intensity. "That seems unjust." He insisted that neither of them would leave without allowing me the opportunity to explain. A figure clad in an apron made his way toward them. "Is everything all right, Valentina? Is this customer giving you a hard time?" "It's all right, Miguel," she reassured him. A longtime companion from Medellin. Miguel wore a look of doubt but chose to step back. Valentina glanced over her shoulder at Jorge. "I finish at 9. Join me at the pier if you're up for a conversation." 2 hours later, they strolled side by side along the wooden pier, the moon casting its glow upon the Caribbean waters. Silence enveloped them for several minutes. "You look great," Jorge finally remarked. "Content?" "Indeed," Valentina confessed. "This place has truly been beneficial for me." "I'm glad," Jorge said genuinely, even though there was a heaviness in his heart. "What led you to discover me?" she inquired once more. He spoke with an air of mystery, suggesting he had his own methods. Valentina came to a halt. "Jorge, I must confirm that no one has sent you." He spoke honestly, stating that no one had sent him. "I have been searching for you ever since the moment you departed." She resumed her walk, I came across an article stating that Mateo has been taken into custody. Misappropriation of funds? Jorge gave a slight nod. He was embezzling from the organization. That's the reason he sought to undermine your credibility. He feared you might inspire me to delve deeper into the books. So, did you trust what he said? Let me share a bit about myself. Jorge turned to face her. Not even for a moment. Yet I lingered on that stage, and for that I shall never absolve myself. Valentina remained silent for an extended period. I've built a life here now, Jorge. I create my own music. Individuals pay attention. Last week, a producer from Bogota listened to my performance. A recording contract was offered to me. Jorge felt a heavy weight in his chest. That's incredible, you truly deserve it. She elaborated that it would involve relocating to Spain for 6 months, collaborating with his team on site. Spain, Jorge reiterated, that's quite a distance. Absolutely. When do you plan to go? In the coming month, should I choose to proceed. Jorge rested against the railing, gazing into the depths of the dark water. Will you agree to this? Valentina stepped up beside him at the railing. I'm still pondering my options. It's my aspiration, Jorge, to be acknowledged, to express my music. Then you ought to go for it, he murmured gently, even if it means being separated. Her gaze met his, a flicker of astonishment crossing her features. Separated? I lost you once because I didn't fight for you, Jorge said, turning to meet her gaze. I shall not repeat that error. Should you find yourself in Spain, I will be here, patiently awaiting your return. If you choose to remain here, I'll relocate to Santa Marta. By any means necessary, Valentina. Her eyes brimmed with tears. It's more complex than that. To me it is, Jorge insisted. I cherish you deeply. Nothing else holds significance. What about your company? Is it the music school? What is your experience like in Medellin? Without you, it's all just empty, he stated plainly. Valentina brushed a tear from her cheek. I require some time, Jorge, to reflect. Take all the time you need, he expressed, though it pained him to utter those words. I will be staying at the Hotel Santa Clara for a week. Following that, he presented her with a business card. You're welcome to reach out anytime. As they separated at the end of the pier, Jorge struggled against the desire to embrace her tightly. Instead, he observed her retreating figure, bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, wishing it wouldn't be their final farewell. A year had passed, and Valentina found herself in a dressing room at Casa Montaña, gazing at her reflection in the mirror. The white dress exuded a sense of simplicity and elegance, cascading gently to the floor. You look beautiful, Lucia said, as she delicately adjusted the small flowers in Valentina's hair. Do you feel anxious? Filled with dread, Valentina confessed. What happens if I can't recall the lyrics? Lucia chuckled softly. The song was crafted by your own hand. Moreover, if there's anyone who can take the stage and perform at their own wedding, it's definitely you. The path leading to this moment has certainly been intricate, hasn't it? Once Jorge discovered her in Santa Marta, Valentina required some time to reflect on her true desires. She had embraced the recording contract, dedicating 6 months in Spain to craft her debut album. Jorge had been her silent supporter, making trips to Barcelona whenever his commitments permitted. Her music career had soared beyond her wildest dreams. Critics lauded her genuine voice and heartfelt songwriting, yet there was an element that felt absent home. When Dona Carmen's health took a turn for the worse 3 months into her Spanish adventure, Valentina hurried back to Medellin. Jorge had meticulously organized for the finest experts, transferring Carmen to a cozy private clinic. Amidst the lengthy hospital visits, Valentina and Jorge found the opportunity to mend and strengthen their bond. Without the glare of fame or the presence of onlookers, it's simply two souls confronting the toughest challenges life throws their way, side by side. A sudden knock at the dressing room door broke the silence of Valentina's contemplation. Is my granddaughter prepared? Dona Carmen inquired, peering in with curiosity. Despite her fragility, she exuded elegance in her blue dress. Prepared as I can be, Valentina responded. Carmen stepped inside, her gaze softening as she absorbed Valentina's presence. Your parents would surely beam with pride. I wish they could be here, Valentina murmured gently. They truly are my life. Carmen gently rested her hand upon Valentina's heart. Right here, in the grand hall, close to 200 guests awaited. The children's choir from the music school had just completed their performance, and a sense of eager expectation hung in the atmosphere. Jorge stood at the altar with Diego by his side as the best man. Take a deep breath, Diego murmured. You seem on the verge of losing consciousness. What if she decides differently? Jorge whispered in reply. Diego reminded him that the woman had recorded an entire album dedicated to her love for him. It seems you are in a secure position. The familiar strains of the wedding march filled the air, only to come to an unexpected halt. Whispers of uncertainty flowed among the audience, until one distinct voice emerged, Valentina's, as she sang the melody she had crafted for Jorge during their separation. The doors swung wide, revealing her gliding down the aisle, her grandmother's voice filling the air with song instead of the traditional march. Jorge found himself paralyzed, unable to draw in a breath or shift his position, as he beheld the woman who had captured his heart from their very first encounter. Her voice enveloped him, a soothing caress that felt like a warm embrace. As she approached him, the last echoes of her melody lingered in the atmosphere, and Jorge grasped her hands gently. You're full of surprises, he murmured, his voice heavy with feeling. With a smile, she vowed to always be there. The ceremony was short yet impactful. As the moment arrived for their vows, Jorge expressed the beauty of second chances and the idea of discovering a sense of home within another person rather than in a specific location. Valentina shared insights on trust, personal development, and the bravery required to pursue both aspirations and affection. At the reception, as they shared their first dance, Jorge embraced her tenderly. Joyful, he inquired. More than I ever imagined, Valentina replied, leaning her head against his shoulder. From her table close to the dance floor, Dona Carmen observed them with a knowing smile. As the dance concluded, she gestured for them to come over. I have something to share with you both, she said as they settled into their seats. A thought that has lingered far too long without being expressed. What is it, grandmother? Valentina inquired, her worry evident in response to her grandmother's grave tone. Carmen started. Jorge, you know I spent many years working for your mother. What you may not realize is the extent of her concern for you following your father's passing. Jorge leaned in, taken aback. Could you clarify what you mean? She worried that you were growing distant, too solemn for someone so young. One day, she caught the sound of Valentina's voice as she came to see me at work. She was captivated. Carmen's eyes sparkled with a lively glimmer. Your mother was the one who proposed that Valentina perform at her funeral. She expressed that her son would require something lovely to grasp on that day. Valentina inhaled sharply. This was never shared with me. Carmen explained that she had made me promise not to. She mentioned that certain matters required their own pace to reveal themselves. Jorge's eyes brimmed with tears. My mother always believed that music has the power to heal the soul, Carmen remarked with a sense of simplicity. And I believe she would be delighted to see you both here today. Valentina grasped Jorge's hand, holding it firmly. In that instant, their transition from a funeral to a wedding, from mere acquaintances to soulmates, seemed almost fated, as if directed by an unseen force. As the festivities unfolded into the night, Jorge guided Valentina to a secluded nook. He spoke gently. I never asked you. On that initial evening at the wedding, as I found myself unable to take my eyes off you, what thoughts crossed your mind? Valentina beamed with joy. I imagined this affluent gentleman in an elegant suit likely witnessed waitresses perform their songs on numerous occasions. What comes next? Now I understand more clearly, she remarked, caressing his face softly. The affluent gentleman in the elegant attire was merely a lad from my community seeking to rediscover his roots. Jorge drew her in tightly. From where did you originate? He murmured softly into her hair, repeating the question that had ignited their adventure. Valentina chuckled gently. Though we originated from the same place, our journeys to this moment have diverged. As they returned to their guests, Valentina experienced a profound sense of fulfillment. The music school flourished, as children from their former neighborhood unearthed their unique voices. Her album had unlocked opportunities she had never envisioned. Yet, above all, she had discovered a love that honored her autonomy while forging a deeper bond together. Jorge observed his bride as she glided through the crowd, still in awe that the waitress who had astonished everyone with her singing had ultimately given him the most profound gift of all. A renewed opportunity for family, for purpose, for love. The journey was neither direct nor simple. Misunderstandings and pain had woven their way through the fabric of our lives, leading to separation and ultimately, growth. As their gazes met from across the room, an undeniable truth settled between them. Every moment had guided them precisely to this point, a true sense of belonging within each other's hearts. 5 years had slipped by since Jorge and Valentina exchanged vows at Casa Montaña. The music foundation they established now thrived in 6 locations across Colombia, changing the lives of hundreds of young individuals. What started as a solitary school in their childhood neighborhood had transformed into something beyond their wildest dreams. Jorge lounged on the terrace of their residence, a cozy abode nestled in a serene neighborhood, far from the penthouse that everyone had anticipated they would select. From the outset of their marriage, they resolved to find a place that resonated with the warmth of home rather than merely serving as a display. From within, he could hear Valentina's gentle voice, not performing one of her renowned hits that had brought her fame throughout Latin America, but rather a tender lullaby. Their daughter, little Carmen, just 3 years old and named after her great-grandmother, was being tucked into bed. Dona Carmen had the privilege of witnessing the birth of her great-granddaughter, departing this world quietly in her sleep shortly after the child's first birthday. Her legacy endured not only through her namesake but also in the Foundation's unique initiative for senior music appreciation, which connected elderly community members with young students. She finally drifted off, Valentina remarked, as she joined Jorge on the terrace. That child exhibits the same stubbornness as her father. Jorge chuckled heartily. I believe you mean as skilled as her mother. Did you catch her softly humming in harmony with you? Absolutely spot on already. With a gentle smile, Valentina settled into the chair next to him, a hint of exasperation in her voice as she uttered a plea for divine assistance. Having a single musician in the family is quite sufficient. 3 albums and 2 Latin Grammy nominations tell a different story, Jorge said, gently taking her hand. They lingered in a cozy quiet, gazing at the shimmering lights of Medellin beneath them and the faint silhouette of their former neighborhood in the distance. Earlier that day, they had participated in the anniversary celebration of the original music school. The song performed by her teenage student touched the hearts of all present, leaving them in tears. A young boy, once unable to afford an instrument just 5 years ago, is now on his way to music school in Bogotá, thanks to a full scholarship. Have you ever pondered the origins of it all? Valentina inquired. Do you remember that evening at Diego's wedding? Just about every day, Jorge responded. The most unforgettable catering mishap of all time. Valentina chuckled softly. It wasn't a catastrophe. The vocalist fell ill, leaving Lucia in a state of despair. And a waitress astonished everyone, Jorge concluded, reflecting the words that had initiated their tale. A millionaire who was utterly captivated by her presence. Text, you were so obvious. Valentina teased, sitting there with your mouth agape. I was taken aback. The girl from my mother's funeral now fully grown. Her voice absolutely mesmerizing. He gently clasped her hand. I was completely outmatched. In the end, I didn't either, Valentina confessed. Their journey was fraught with obstacles. Maintaining harmony between Valentina's musical pursuits, Jorge's entrepreneurial endeavors, and their philanthropic efforts demanded ongoing dialogue and mutual concessions. Yet, they had crafted something truly extraordinary in unison. A collaboration in which both individuals maintained their full essence, allowing space for one another without compromise. Today, Valentina shared that little Carmen posed an intriguing question. She was curious about my origins. What did you say to her? Jorge inquired. Valentina responded that her origins were rooted in music, love, and a touch of bravery. and that one day she will discover her origins as well. Jorge drew his wife nearer, and we will assist her in the search. As the night enveloped them in its embrace, they lingered on the terrace. Two individuals originating from the same starting point, navigating distinct journeys to arrive at the same conclusion. The waitress, who astonished everyone with her singing, had crafted a life she never could have envisioned that night. And the millionaire who couldn't tear his gaze away had discovered something far more precious than all his achievements. He had discovered his path back to where he belonged. On the serene terrace, while their daughter slumbered soundly indoors, Jorge and Valentina embraced one another, cherishing every miscommunication and unexpected turn of events that had brought them to this very moment. Destined to happen.